Now, the corporate fraction, of course, is always interested in anything that will increase profits and/or market share. And the centrality of branding is the key to understanding what the ICON project represents for the corporate fraction of the TCC. The Harvard Business School guru, D.B. Holt, whose book, How Brands Become Icons, written in 2004, argues that meaningful stories about brands become myths that solve cultural contradictions. And this process transforms brands into icons. So transforming brands into icons basically leads to greater sales and profits for the brand. And there's an enormous academic literature on this in the advertising and marketing disciplines, both scholarly and popular. And I think we can identify this as more or less the official capitalist theory behind the ICON project. If you can turn something or someone into an icon, or turn something to be an iconic, then it increases profits and sales and profits. I don't want to go on too long, so I'm just going to put some examples on the board. Can you read that? Just so these are some examples of corporate icons in the era of capitalist globalization. I just want to make one important distinction here, and that is the difference between advertisements, where the owner of the product or the person is claiming iconicity, as opposed to where it's picked up in the media and simply reproduced. Now, does anyone here know anything about journalism? The way journalism works, basically, 95% of journalists are really lazy, and they get press releases all the time from companies, from PR people, so on. And they reproduce what's in that. So a lot of the stuff that appears to be editorial or reportage is simply reproduction of business propaganda. And this is well documented. My only doubt is that maybe 95% lazy journalists are a bit low. Maybe it's 99%. So I just want to give you a nice little example of the way in which this works. Compare two sets of icon attributions. First, adverts from my local free newspaper, North London, which is the Camden New Journal, June 2011. It's an advert for Zendo kickboxing at Karma, which is the firm, name of the firm. Which belt will you choose? The advert goes, iconic belt / boring belt. So that's the company claiming iconicity for its belts. Okay, where's the second one? Sorry. In 2005, Google has spent barely any money on advertising, yet has grown into one of the world's most iconic and valuable brands. This is the Guardian, progressive newspaper, accrediting Google with iconicity, while pot noodles, remember your student days, shells out up to £5 million a year trying to sell reconstituted dried pasta snacks via ironic marketing campaigns. So it's the distinction, which often isn't much of a distinction, between self-attributed and apparently media-attributed iconicity. Even those on the left, in the guise of American liberals, also have their copper icons. There's a very nice paper showing how Ben & Jerry, which is dubbed a social enterprise icon and identified as a left liberal corporate icon, lost its sheen when it sold out to Unilever, as did many other progressive-sounding brands. So the left has its own icons. Che Guevara has also been profitably iconized globally through the Icon Project. And I'll talk a bit more about Che Guevara in a moment. Anything that can be sold, therefore, can be made iconic through commercial heightening of meaning. While ideas like these have been floating around big business for many decades, the explicit use of iconicity has certainly increased rapidly in recent years. Now, there is documentary evidence for some of which I will start to present here. The state fraction, second. The role of globalizing politicians and bureaucrats. Now, the role of state fraction of the transnational capitalist class in the manufactured iconicity is more complex than the other three fractions, bound up with the convoluted issues of nationalism, national identities, imagined communities, and invention of tradition. Globalizing politicians and bureaucrats have become skilled at slotting so-called national icons seamlessly into the economic and cultural systems of capitalist globalization, frequently through the tropes of international tourism, exports, and global city boosterism. So basically, national icons are used in order to boost economic activity. I mean, those of you who got the rough guide, I think other only planet, one or the other, to Prague will notice on the cover the picture of the building about a mile down the road. The Frank Gehry building, the Fred and Ginger building. And that's a good example. I mean, guidebooks are an excellent indication of what's considered to be iconic locally. The government of Tony Blair, the New Labour project, no doubt as part of the Co-Britannia initiative, which was an attempt to recreate the swinging 60s in London, tried to do just that. Under the title of the Ministry of City Icons, The Guardian exposed the futility of this exercise. However, as Table 2 shows, hopefully, the project of national icons is alive and well. For those of you who are interested in French cultural history, you will, I hope, immediately connect this with the rather more sophisticated work of Pierre Nora and his group around the links of memory, the sites of memory in France, which is just another way of talking about national icons, although Nora himself doesn't really use that term, but it's more or less the same thing. Famous, like the Eiffel Tower, symbolic, again for the Eiffel Tower, it's symbolic for its modernist aesthetic, so the symbolism and the aesthetics are all often connected together. Again, I don't want to go on too long, but just to say the media and populist writers often present candidates for national icons, especially in times of perceived national crisis. For example, there's a good example from the Moscow Times, English edition in 1998, so it's quite a while ago. To appease a potentially explosive generation yet, young Russians will need more than MTV. This was 1997. They need their own icons. One possibility is Ilya Agutenko, the ambitious leader of Muny Troll, which is probably the country's most popular band today. Any historians of Russian popular music among us today? No. Okay, a young intellectual, and he is a young intellectual. I found out a bit about him. He's not to be scoffed at, young Ilya. represents both the Soviet past and the Russian present. So it's an attempt to use iconicity to resolve an observable national crisis. Now, on a more sort of local level, there's a very good book called Everyday Icon, Michelle Obama and the Power of Style, about how Michelle Obama becomes iconized mainly through her wardrobe when poor Barack's election campaign went into trouble. Very good study by a guy called Hedges. Again, all these references will be in the article, and I'll be happy if anybody's interested in particular to give that information, about the genesis of national visual language, the way in which national icons are presented visually and become iconized in a viral sense throughout the world through media exposure. I mean, obviously, the best example of this is what happened with the World Trade Center, previously Chrysler Building, or Mount Rushmore, and so on. So these are parts of national, visual, iconic language, which are more or less always turned to commercial advantage. The link between national icons and icons of globalizing cities are very much connected. And I just want to show you this. This is the T-shirt from Kuala Lumpur. These are the Petronas Towers, which are now more or less global icons for people who are interested in this sort of architecture. So iconic Petronas Towers and some local icon candidates display the symbols and aesthetics of Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia, guard City of Light. So there's this sort of modernist symbolism and the aesthetics. The aesthetics have got to do with the Islamic floor plan, and I've written about this. If anyone's interested in any of these details, I'm happy to see. Now, the professional technical fraction of globalizing of the transnational capitalist class, lawyers who create and manage the legal status of national and supranational icons and seek to protect the intellectual property of these icons, scholars and heritage professionals who authenticate and provide narratives for sites and artifacts, museums and other public spaces that exhibit icons, all perform vital services for the icon project. So this is a case where scholars who are doing scholarly work are providing material that is taken up by corporations and globalizing politicians and bureaucrats for commercial purposes. And, well, we can discuss that if anybody wants to raise the morality of this. I'm just reporting it.